Hi class and welcome. This next module is going to focus on positive psychology. And we're very fortunate enough to have an expert in that, Dr. Thomas Muha. He is an author and founder of the PROPEL methodology. So welcome to Dr. Muha.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Muha. Today we're going to talk about optimal leadership, 6 principles of positive psychology called PROPEL. You know, just this morning I met with a manager who I knew she was distressed the moment I walked into her office. You could see the frustration on her brow and a tinge of fear in her eyes. And when I sat down and started to talk to her, she was like on overload. It's like, this is in a hospital setting, so she's like, oh, I'm really trying to work on the patient falls, and we're really working to reduce those. But I've also got budget issues. I've had staff turnover, and you could just see the stress mounting. So this is, unfortunately, pretty typical. I began to talk to her about, well, you know, you need to get your employees engaged. She's got 50 people in her staff. You need to get your employees engaged in helping. And she's like, oh, they're already swamped. They've already got too much to do. As I say, that's pretty typical. This is a Gallup survey from 2012, the latest we have available. And you can see only in the American workforce, only about 30% of a staff is engaged. So she's got about 15 people out of her 50 that are really there working, trying to make good things happen. But look at that next number. Over half of the typical workforce is disengaged. What does that mean? They're showing up to collect a paycheck, do the job, do the minimum they need to do to get along, and go home. 25 of her 50 people fall into that category. How about actively disengaged? Oh my, nearly 1 in 5 admit on a Gallup survey, they are actively sabotaging her. They're stealing from their employer, they're bad-mouthing her, they're even hurting the patients that they are supposed to be taking care of, and they admit it. Oh my. No wonder this woman's getting patient complaints. So what is this employee engagement? What does this really mean? 100% psychological job commitment, as defined by Gallup. And you can see there's significant benefits to having your employees be more engaged. And the bottom line, 147% higher earnings if you can get that 30% engagement level up to the 90% engagement level. That's the research that I do. I've been focused for the last 12 years on figuring out how does it really work for leaders? How do you actually get from 30% to 90%? And I use the science of optimal human functioning, otherwise known as positive psychology. The father of positive psychology is Marty Seligman, and you can see in his book, Flourish, there's 5 elements. Notice that second one, engagement. Well, we already saw how important that is in the workforce. But also positive emotions, having meaning in your job, great relationships, and achieving goals. Well, wow, isn't that what every manager wants? Have their employees feeling good, engaged in doing a good job, feeling a real sense of purpose, working well as a team, and accomplishing the goals. Yeah, so this science, theoretically, ought to help leaders a lot. Welcome to PROPEL. The research that I've done has shown that there are 6 elements. If you put these 6 principles into practice, you get remarkable results. Not only in terms of do you get better customer satisfaction, better profit margins, but leaders will say to me, you know, my life is a whole lot better. The woman that I was speaking to this morning, in a few months, she'll be saying the same thing. Wow, I've got my staff engaged, and has that taken the pressure off? They're helping me with all those demands that I have coming from above. Their passion's gone up. Our relationships have gone up. When we do hit a snag, optimism. We figure out a solution. Proactive. Proactive is the opposite of reactive. And she will know, here's how I move forward when I'm facing a challenge. And here's how I take my team with me. Energy. This woman I was talking to this morning was telling me, I come to work, I'm already tired. Well, she's not managing her energy well. But she'll learn, and you will too. And legacy. Legacy is making a meaningful difference. Remember meaning from optimal functioning? People who have meaning make a real difference in the lives of others. That's the highest level of functioning for a human being. So we put these 6 elements together in what's called the PROPEL model. Leaders who learn to use this are really able to do quite well, not only for themselves, but for their organization. But let's talk about the enemy. The enemy of optimal functioning is stress. And here's some research from David Rock, the neuropsychologist from Australia. The 5 things that stress people out. SCARF model, he calls it. If any of these 5 things fire off, you get the fight or flight. You go away, you attack, or you move toward and try to solve the problem. So if you're around someone who has more status, if you're uncertain in a situation, if someone's telling you what to do, there's no flexibility, if you don't have a good connection, and if life is unfair, you're all in leadership positions. How often do you see this happening in your organization? Every day, every hour of every day, you see these issues creating that threat, that stress. What does that mean? This is what your brain looks like on stress. In that little orange segment, that's the amygdala. That's the part that fires off the stress chemicals. You know adrenaline, that's the one that gets you all shaky. But it also fires off a chemical called cortisol. That's the one that's designed, so the bear jumps out, you got to run. But you can't fall asleep because the bear's still out there. He's still hungry. He's still looking for you. So you got to stay on edge. You got to scan for threat. That's what cortisol does in your brain. You know that you don't have bears jumping out at you, but you had a bear of an employee who's gotten in your face, haven't you? And then you worry about it. You start thinking about it. You dwell on it. That's what those chemicals are designed to do. Scan for threat. And they affect the brainstem. That your heart rate, your respiration, tension level, gastrointestinal tract gets all tightened up. Not good. You can feel stress in your body. But there is another part of your brain. When stress takes over, it hijacks your brain. But fortunately, you have a left prefrontal cortex. You're going to learn in just a second how important it is to be able to access that part of your brain. Stress hijacks your brain. It cuts you off from this executive functioning part of your brain. But there is a way to get it back. To get back to that crinkly gray matter that is uniquely human, that allows us to be able to figure things out. So, first thing you have to do is calm yourself. And you do that, here's our PROPEL model, you do that by asking yourself, what's the positive outcome that I'm looking for? The question we pose specifically is, what will it look like? Willpower. What will it look like when I have a good outcome? When you think it, that's the part of your brain that engages. And when you can see it's going to work out just fine, your brain calms down, stops firing off all those stress chemicals. Next question. So calm, consider, who are the positive people? Who are the people that can support me? Engagement. Yeah? And what are the problems and how are we going to solve them? Doesn't do any good, as you well know, to sit around listening to all the problems. Who are the people that can help me find solutions? Proactivity, what strengths? I can see the problem, I can see the solution. How are we going to get there together? What strengths do we possess as individuals and as a team? How am I going to fuel energy to keep my team moving forward? And what difference is it going to make? Consider those 6 questions. It engages your brain, shuts down those stress chemicals, and starts you moving towards that positive outcome. Calm, consider, collaborate. Who you choose to connect with is crucial. This is a normal distribution. We've all seen that bell-shaped curve. You've got your people at the top, you got your people at the bottom, and we have the average in the middle. Many change initiatives are looking to move that average line. That's not what we do in PROPEL. We're looking to tip it. Here's how that works. You have negative people. You're the worst, most outspoken person on your unit, on your team, in your organization. You know who that is, don't you? Yeah. So what happens when they start up? When they start running their mouth? Yeah. And then they bring a few of their friends with them. What happens to the whole team? They bring that middle 50%, they bring them right on down, and they crash and burn, don't they? We've all been in meetings with those people, and we've all felt the air get sucked out of the room. It's horrible. But if that's true, what happens if that positive person comes to the middle and they bring their friends with them? Well, yes, that's exactly right. It tips in the other direction. That's why it's so important to harness the passion in a relationship. And we're going to stop, take a little break right here.